Greetings, I'm Brother Antonio with Believers of the Way Israelites San Diego. I want to give all praise to the Most High in the name of His Son. And I want to thank you for watching this video. The topic of today's video is repenting for beginners. So in this video, I got it broken down into 3 sections. The first section will be repenting on a day-to-day level for beginners. The second section will be repenting on a ceremonial level for beginners, as far as transitioning from keeping holidays in the world to keeping holy days out the Bible. And then the third section will be repenting on a social level, on how you're interacting with people. Okay, so getting straight into the first section of repenting for beginners. So day-to-day repenting, section 1. We're going to start off by going to the book of Acts chapter 15. And we're going to read verses 20 through 21. Actually, I'm going to start up at 19. This is the book of Acts, chapter 15, verse 19. Wherefore my sentence is, that we trouble not them which from among the Gentiles are turned to God, but that we write unto them that they abstain from pollutions of idols, and from fornication, and from things strangled, and from blood. For Moses of old time hath in every city them that preach him, being read in the synagogues every Sabbath day. Okay, so the context of this verse is the apostles were teaching people who were new to the faith. And these new people needed a set of instructions to get started following the Most High. So they gave them these particular commandments to get them started. So let's read that again in verse 20. But that we write unto them that they abstain from pollutions of idols. So that's idolatry in any form. And from fornication. So the laws on fornication, and from things strangled, and from blood. Now that has to do with the food you're eating. So when they were giving people new to the faith laws to keep, they started off with idolatry, the laws on fornication, and with the dietary law. So in this first section on the day-to-day repenting, I will be getting into idolatry. I'll be getting into the dietary law, and also to add on to that, as a recommendation for me, I'm gonna throw in the laws on clothing, the dress code, and relationships as far as marriage. So those are the sections we're going to get into as far as day-to-day repenting. Dress code, relationships, dietary law, idolatry, and one more to start us off, because if you read verse 21 in Acts chapter 15, at the end it says that being read in the synagogues every Sabbath day. And that's the first law I'm going to go to on my personal recommendations on how to get started repenting. The Sabbath. The Sabbath is a great way to get started repenting, because it's like a weekly reset to keep you focused on the Most High. So we're going to go to the book of Exodus chapter 20. This is the book of Exodus chapter 20, and we're going to read verse 8. Verses 8 through 11. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. So now I know this first section is called day-to-day repenting, but I put the Sabbath in here because even though the Sabbath is one day out the week, there's a preparation day before it. And a lot of times you might be preparing other days for the Sabbath. So on a day-to-day level, as far as repenting, the Sabbath definitely keeps you focused, and it helps the rest of the days of the week stay in line, because that Sabbath got you focused. Now, as you're going through your week, that Sabbath recharged you to stay focused on the Most High. Okay, so getting into idolatry, we're gonna start off with Jeremiah chapter 10, as far as repenting and idolatry. Okay, this is the book of Jeremiah chapter 10. And we're starting at the top, verse 1. Hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. So to start off, when it comes to idolatry and repenting on a day-to-day level, a lot of idolatry is rooted on people worshiping the stars and so forth, which can lead to horoscopes or fortune telling. So all of that is against the Most High, and when you're repenting and turning to the Most High, you have to turn away from those things. So to get another scripture to support turning away from horoscopes, astrology, or anything similar to that, where you're getting knowledge and guidance outside of the Most High, we're going to go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 18. Okay, this is the book of Deuteronomy chapter 18, and we're going to read verses 10 and 11. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch. Verse 11, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. And we're going to go ahead and read verse 12 as well. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord, and because of these abominations the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee. Okay, so let's go over some of these titles that the Most High is not okay with. An observer of times, enchanters, witches, charmers, consulters with familiar spirits, which I believe consulters with familiar spirits is people who say that they can talk to people that died. You know, I believe that's what that is. Or a wizard, or a necromancer. So any any of these like sort of magical seeming titles, it's safe to stay away from those and just focus on believing in the Most High. So when it comes to repenting on the day-to-day level, no horoscopes, no wondering what your horoscope says for you to do today, no talking about what astrological sign you are. All of that would be idolatry and against the Most High. Okay, so to get another scripture on against idolatry, we're going to go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 47. And we're going to read verses 11 through 13. Therefore shall evil come upon thee, thou shalt not know from whence it riseth, and mischief shall fall upon thee, thou shalt not be able to put it off, and desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know. Verse 12, stand now with thine enchantments, and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so, be thou shalt able to profit. If so, be thou mayest prevail. Verse 13, thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators stand up and save thee from all these things that shall come upon thee. Okay, so here in this verse, the Most High is talking to the children of Israel as they're going through captivity and suffering, and he's telling them to go to all the astrologers and all the idolatrous beliefs that they were practicing to try to get them out of their predicament. So once again, so right here in this verse, we have proof that astrology is idolatry against the Most High. Stargazers, monthly prognosticators. So anybody that's trying to get information to guide you that's not coming from the Most High, but it's coming from his creations, that would be a form of idolatry and something you need to avoid when you're repenting. And one more verse on idolatry. Let's go to the book of Leviticus, chapter 19. Okay. This is the book of Leviticus, chapter 19, verse 26 through 28. Ye shall not eat anything with the blood, neither shall ye use enchantment nor observe times. So right here it says don't eat anything with the blood, which is similar to the verse we started off with in Acts when they were telling the new people, a couple commandments to keep, and one of them was the blood. And right here it's mentioned with the enchantments and the observing of times. Verse 27, ye shall not round the corners of your heads, neither shalt thou mar the corners of thy beard. So when it comes to repenting, now I know this is under idolatry, but these are also good commandments to keep when you're starting off repenting. You don't want to shave your beard, and you don't want to mar the natural line of your hair when you're getting a haircut. So whether it's the natural line of your beard or your hair, you don't want to go into it as far as like if you're getting a lineup and it's taking all the hair completely off, you don't want to do that. whether it's, once again, your beard line or your hairline. And continuing on in verse 28, ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. I am the Lord. So it says, don't make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead. Now, that's not as popular as getting tattoos, but it's still the same, in the same realm of cutting your flesh. Because tattoos is like, I guess, a less extreme version of cutting your flesh. But both these things I would recommend to do when repenting. If you already have tattoos, that's okay, but just don't get any more. And definitely don't harm yourself if you think that it's atoning for dead people or something. So these are some more commandments I would recommend when getting started repenting. No tattoos, no cutting yourself, no marring the corners of your hair or your beard. And you don't want to shave your hair or your beard too. Okay, so that was so on a day-to-day repenting level, those are some laws on idolatry that you can keep that can help you avoid sinning. You want to avoid astrology, horoscopes, any of those titles like wizard, necromancer, enchanter, anything that seems magical and fairy tale like that. People who have a title like that, you want to avoid that pretty much. Okay, so that's the first group within day-to-day repenting under idolatry. So as far as the dietary law, I already have a video on that, and I plan on making more. But when it comes to the dietary law, you can go to Leviticus chapter 11, where all of the animals that you can and can't eat are listed. And also, you can also go to Deuteronomy 14 for that as well. And also remember that when it comes to the clean animals that you can eat, it can't have the blood, so it needs to be well cooked. So when it comes to the dietary law, it is one of the main things that I would recommend when you get started repenting is avoid unclean foods. That's also going to help you get into the zone of repenting when you're constantly asking people, was this cooked next to pork? Or if you're constantly checking ingredients, that's going to get you into the mind state of being, a real follower of the Most High. Well, a real follower of Christ and a servant of the Most High. So when it comes to food, Leviticus chapter 11 and Deuteronomy chapter 14 tell you the animals that are clean and unclean to eat. Okay. So moving on, we're gonna go to the relationships part of the day-to-day repenting section. So Leviticus chapter 18 details the laws when it comes to who you can and who you can't engage in a relationship with. You know what I'm saying? And as far as, what would be considered incest, what would be considered bestiality, homosexuality, you know what I'm saying? So of course, and I'm not gonna go into that all right now. I might make a dedicated video on that separately. But Leviticus chapter 18 gives you the rules and regulations on who you're allowed to be in a relationship with. Okay, but the first verse that we're going to read under relationships on day-to-day repenting, we're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 22. And we're going to read verses 28 through 29. If a man find a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed, and lay hold on her, and lie with her, and they be found. So pretty much if a man meets a woman and, she's single. And when it says, and lay hold on her and lie with her, that's not talking about force. And it's gonna, so the verse above it would be talking about force, but a lot of people think this is talking about force. It's not. So it's just talking about if a man meets a woman and he has intercourse with her. Verse 29, then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he hath humbled her. He may not put her away all his days. So the reason I bring this scripture out is to show that sex is marriage according to the Bible. So when it comes to day-to-day repenting on the relationship level, sex is considered marriage. So pretty much do not have sex with anybody unless you're planning on being with them for the rest of your life. You know what I'm saying? So, and to get another scripture that supports that sex is marriage, not just the ceremony that signifies it. Let's go to the book of Genesis chapter 24. And we're going to read verses 62 through 67. And Isaac came from the way of the well, Lahairoi, for he dwelt in the south country. And Isaac went out to meditate in the field at the eventide. And he lifted up his eyes, and he saw, and behold, the camels were coming. And Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she lighted off the camel. For she had said unto the servant, what man is this that walketh in the field to meet us? And the servant had said, it is my master. Therefore she took a veil and covered herself. And the servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. And Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife. And he loved her, and Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. So Isaac meets Rebekah for the first time right here. And in verse 67, it says, and Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent and took Rebekah. And notice it uses the same terminology, took her. So this wasn't force. It's just the terminology that they use right here. And she became his wife. So when he took her into the tent, they didn't have a ceremony in the tent. They had intercourse, and that's how she became his wife. So once again, that's proof that when it comes to a man and a woman getting in a relationship and a union, that is created through intercourse, not through the ceremony. So if you're repenting, that is something that you got to know now. Casual sex is not something that the Most High is okay with. He's about people having intercourse within lifelong relationships. Okay, so when it comes to day-to-day repenting, that's something you got to know. So sex is marriage. And to get one more scripture on relationship level repenting, day to day, let's go to the book of Matthew chapter 5. Also having to do with marriages. Okay, so this is the book of Matthew chapter 5. And we're going to read verse 31 through 32. It hath been said, whoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. Verse 32, but I say unto you, that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery. And whosoever shall marry her that is divorced, committeth adultery. So, when it comes to divorce, the Most High is strongly against divorce. He never intended for a man and woman to separate after they got married. So the only condition where divorce is acceptable, and this is the words of Christ too, the only conditions where divorce would be acceptable is due to fornication. So anything outside of that, two people are not allowed to get divorced. So when it comes to repenting on a day-to-day level, you need to know that sex is marriage, and you need to know that you cannot get a divorce for any reason. It has to be for fornication. Okay. So that was relationship level repenting. So now let's get to the dress code when it comes to repenting for beginners on a day-to-day level. So the first scripture we got is Numbers chapter 15. And we're going to read verse 38. Speak unto the children of Israel, and bid them that they make them fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generations, and that they put on the fringe of the borders a ribbon of blue. So the Most High requires all your garments that you wear to have fringes and a ribbon of blue. And I'm going to read the next verse. Verse 39. And it shall be unto you for a fringe, that ye may look upon it and remember all the commandments of the Lord and do them. And that ye seek not after your own heart and your own eyes, after which ye used to go a-whoring. That ye may remember and do all my commandments and be holy unto your God. So when it comes to your dress code, the Most High requires fringes and a border of blue to be on your garments, so that you remember to keep and do all his commandments. And what does it say right here? And not seek after your own heart and after your own eyes. So that's so when it comes to repenting on a day-to-day level, getting your fringes on is definitely something I would recommend, because first off, you know, when you put that on, you're really signifying that you're committing to the Most High, and it's like a sign to other people, because they're gonna see it, they're gonna ask you, and then when you're constantly being asked about your fringes, that's gonna give you an opportunity to tell them about the truth. So definitely fringes is a big thing I recommend when you're getting started repenting. Okay, so when it comes to the dress code for repenting, the next scripture we're going to go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 22. And we're going to read verse 5. The woman shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man, neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, for all that do so are an abomination unto the Lord thy God. So this also might be might have an in-depth video to itself, but real quickly, this scripture is talking about that men can only wear clothes meant for men, and women can only wear clothes meant for women. For example, like men can't wear dresses, women can't wear pants. Men can't wear skirts, women can't wear like a suit, you know what I'm saying? Like as far as like, you know, like a tuxedo. So as far as the dress code, gender appropriate clothing. Okay, so the next scripture, also in Deuteronomy chapter 22, we're going to read verses 11 and 12. Thou shalt not wear a garment of diverse sorts, as of woolen and linen together. So that's talking about no mixed fabrics, pretty much. So like whatever garment you wear, it needs to be 100% that, whether it's 100% cotton, 100% linen, 100% wool, 100%, you know, etc. Polyester, nylon, whatever material you happen to be wearing, it needs to be 100% that. And that's probably a whole nother video too, as of why the Most High said that. But just for now, you know, when you go to buy clothes, check the tags. It's pretty easy. Sometimes you might have to go to several stores to find something that has 100%. But a lot of stores have 100% clothing. And also too, you know what I'm saying, go through your closet and read all those tags. So when it comes to the dress code, you know what I'm saying, 100% fabrics, gender appropriate clothing, and fringes. And to finish off the dress code section, we're going to go to 1 Timothy chapter 2. And we're going to read verse 9. In like manner also, that women adorn themselves in modest apparel, with shamefacedness and sobriety, not with broided hair or gold or pearls or costly array. So this verse is saying that for women, so after you got your gender appropriate clothing and your fringes, and you make sure that it's 100% fabric, it needs to be modest, meaning that it's not showing off your body. You know, it's concealing what your body looks like. That's the point of it. And when it says not with broided hair or gold or pearls or costly array, that's not saying that those things are not allowed. It's saying that those things are not what you use to show your beauty. If you're seeking to show your beauty as a woman, you do it with your righteous qualities, not with what you're wearing, as far as in a carnal way. You know what I'm saying? It's okay to look good, but in a modest way, not where you're showing off the what your body looks like. Okay, so that is all the sections under the day-to-day repenting. So to reiterate it, on the day-to-day repenting, you want to keep the Sabbath. You want to avoid idolatry, which a lot of idolatry has to do with astrology and anything that goes into getting knowledge to live your life outside of the Most High from His creations, like the stars, the sun, and anything you can worship to try to get knowledge from it that's not the Most High, that would be that would fall under idolatry. You don't want to get any tattoos. You don't want to get any cuttings for your flesh. So that's the idolatry. You want to avoid unclean foods when it comes to food. As far as relationships, we know that sex is marriage. We know that you can't get a divorce unless it's for fornication. And we know that Leviticus chapter 18 has all the regulations for who you can and can't engage in a relationship with. And we know that as far as when it comes to the dress code, it needs to be gender appropriate, with fringes, and modest, especially when it comes to the women. So that's the first section on day-to-day repenting. So the second section, when it comes to repenting for beginners, this is the ceremonial section. So transitioning from stopping keeping holidays in the world to keeping holy days out the Bible. Now, how to keep the holy days, that's also going to be its own specific video. But just to give you some quick pointers on how to transition from holidays to holy days, you can read Leviticus chapter 23, where it has all the well, not all of them, but all the main holy days listed before we get the memorials that happen later on after that. So Leviticus chapter 23 has all those listed in. And we're going to go back to Jeremiah chapter 10 to read about why you should not keep Christmas, for example, as one of the holidays in the world that we should not be keeping. Well, actually, all of the holidays in the world we should not be keeping. And this is an example of one being Christmas. Okay, so this is the book of Jeremiah. And we're going to read, and we're going to start at verse 3. For the customs of the people are vain, for one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. So this is talking about, so it says that somebody took a tree out of the forest. They cut it, decked it with silver and gold, and fastened it to the ground so it doesn't move. And that's exactly what you do on Christmas. So, and this practice is vain, because at the beginning in verse 3 it says the customs or the people are vain. So for example, Christmas, that is a holiday that the Most High did not he did not prescribe. And also too, when you get into the history of Christmas, it goes into the winter solstice, which is idolatry and worshiping of the stars once again. So Christmas, Thanksgiving, Valentine's Day, New Year's, all of these holidays have not been prescribed by the Most High, and they all have origins in wickedness. So you want to avoid those holidays when you're getting started repenting. And you're going to transition onto holy days. So the Sabbath is considered a holy day. So every week you would technically be getting into that ceremonial repenting with the Sabbath. But also once a month, the new moon would be a holy day. So there's a holy day every month with the new moon. So let's read. So we're going to go to the book of Numbers, chapter 10. So this is the book of Numbers, chapter 10, verse 10. Also in the day of your gladness, and in your solemn days, and in the beginnings of your months, ye shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings, and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before your God. I am the Lord your God. So the new moon signifies the beginning of the month. And that's as it says, the beginning of here, it's a day of your gladness. So that's a celebratory day every month that you have, because a lot of times when people are repenting and coming out of the world, they feel like they're missing out on a lot of stuff that they were doing. But actually, when you come into the truth, there's actually probably more celebrations than main holidays in the world. So that's not something you're gonna have to worry about if you feel like you're missing out on celebrations. Another scripture on the new moon. Let's go to the book of Psalms, chapter 81. And we're gonna read verse 3. Blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed, on our solemn feast day. I'm gonna read the next verse. For this was a statute for Israel, and a law of the God of Jacob. So it's a law to celebrate on the new moon at the beginning of every month. So when you're getting started repenting, and you're not keeping the holidays in the world, the new moon every month is also another law I would recommend to start keeping, because it gives, just like the Sabbath gives you a weekly schedule to reset, the new moon gives you that monthly reset. And also too, if you happen to be a part of a congregation, the new moons may be where you get to meet up with more people and be able to congregate that way. So so the main point of the second section is that when you're getting started repenting and coming out of the world, you don't want to engage in the world's celebrations. And the Most High also has his celebrations on special days, and that's also going to help you get into the mode of repenting. So one more scripture on repenting on a ceremonial level. We'll get an example of Christ. So let's go to the book of John, chapter 10. And we're going to read verses 22 through and 23. And it was at Jerusalem the feast of the dedication, and it was winter. And Jesus walked in the temple in Solomon's porch. So even Christ was keeping these feast days as a law. And also he was keeping the feast of dedication, which is a memorial outside of the main feast days listed in Leviticus chapter 23. So even these other memorial days, Christ was keeping those. So we should be keeping all of them as well. So when it comes to repenting on a ceremonial level, in this section 2, no more holidays of the world. Holy days out the Bible. And that's the end of section 2, ceremonial repenting for beginners. So all right, so the third section, and this will be pretty brief. This is social. So repenting when it comes to interacting with other people, most notably your fellow Israelites. So we're going to start with the book of Matthew, chapter 22. Oh, no, that's not Matthew 22. Wait a minute. Yeah, Matthew. Okay. So we're going to read Matthew chapter 22, verses 37 through 40. Jesus said unto him, actually, I'm going to start at verse 36 to give context. No, 35. Then one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting him, saying, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Jesus said unto them, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And that is a great commandment. But this next one is the one I want to focus on. Verse 39. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. So in this third section, when it comes to social repenting, the second greatest commandment that Christ listed was to love your neighbor as yourself. So when you're getting started repenting, when it comes to you interacting with other people, you want to treat them how you would like to be treated. You know, and I know that's simple, but for example, if you don't like being talked to a certain type of way, you shouldn't talk to other people that way. If you like having things done for you a certain type of way, you should go that extra mile for other people as well. So when it comes to repenting on a social level, you know, that is definitely one of the first things you should be working on whenever you interact with your fellow brother or sister. Treat them like you would want to be treated. Okay? The second scripture I'm going to get to in the third section is, we're going to go to the book of Zephaniah, chapter 2. And we're going to read we're going to start at the top. Gather yourselves together. Yeah, gather together, O nation not desired. Before the decree bring forth, before the day pass as the chaff, before the fierce anger of the Lord come upon you, before the day of the Lord's anger come upon you. All right, so what this verse is saying, gather yourselves together. So when it comes to repenting on a social level, I would recommend gathering with other Israelites, because when you're getting started repenting and coming out of the world, having other Israelites is going to help encourage you. It's going to help you stay focused. They're going to help keep you accountable. And also, too, people tend to I would say, gravitate towards the crowd that they hang out with. So being around righteous people who are also interested in repenting is only going to help your walk even better. So definitely gather yourselves together. That was Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 1. And I read verse 2, but the point was in verse 1. So another scripture on social repenting for beginners, we're going to go to the book of Matthew chapter 18. And we're going to read verses 21 and 22. Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Till 7 times? Jesus saith unto him, I say not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. So once you understand that you have to treat your neighbor like yourself, and then once you gather together with your brothers, then you need to be prepared to forgive them 70 times 7. And that's just not literally 7 times 7, but that's talking about just constantly forgiving people is something I would recommend when you first come into the truth and you're getting started repenting. Because one thing that can knock you out of this truth is always worrying about what other people are doing wrong. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have to do a lot of forgiving, whether it's people in the truth or people out the truth. Talking about brothers and sisters. So having a mindset that you're ready to forgive is going to make it easy, because when you forgive, you're not going to keep dwelling on whatever the issue was. You're just going to forgive it. You're just going to forgive, forget, and keep moving. When you don't forgive, you keep dwelling on it. So when it comes to repenting on a social level, in this truth, be prepared to constantly forgive people for their missteps. And the last verse in this third and final section, we're going to go to the book of Matthew, chapter 24. And we're going to read verses 13 and 14. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then the end shall come. So the reason I brought this verse out, now this is really not so much under the social section. This is just in general for the whole video. When you're getting started repenting, I recommend getting your mindset right of what to expect. And you need to expect to all these laws that you're going to plan on start keeping. You need to expect to do this for the rest of your life. Because a lot of times people get wrapped up in thinking that Christ is going to come back soon, and they're keeping all these commandments, but they're not doing it but they're not setting these commandments in their schedule so that it can be long term. And then after time goes on, they're not able to last repenting because they weren't thinking about keeping the commandments until to the end of their life. They were preparing to keep commandments only for a certain period of time because they might have thought Christ was coming back, like when people thought he was coming back in 2000. So I recommend that when you're getting started repenting, always make sure that every time you're adding a law unto your life or subtracting a sin, remember that this is something that you're going to have to do until the day you die or until Christ comes back, whichever comes first. So, so whenever you're applying these commandments to your life, have the mindset of long term. And you definitely need to do that when you're a beginner, because that's going to help you be stable. Okay, so that was the video, repenting one-on-one, repenting for beginners. It was going to be repenting 101. So just to reiterate, we learned repenting on a day-to-day level, just quickly keeping the Sabbath, avoiding idolatry, learning about relationships and the dress code and the dietary law. We learned about ceremonial, stopping keeping holidays in the world and keeping holy days out of the Bible. And we also learned about repenting on a social level, gathering together with your brothers and sisters, treating them like you would want to be treated. And what else is there? Oh, being ready to be forgiving. And when you do all of these things, no matter what it is, whether it's social, ceremonial, or on the day-to-day level, you need to have the mindset that this is going to be your life for the rest of your life. And you need to add these things into your life in a wise way so that you can keep up doing it. So that was a video, repenting for beginners. I hope it was helpful. This was the recommendations from the book of Acts, chapter 15, with a few personal recommendations from myself on how to get started repenting. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and shalom.